We talked about the coasters that were smoother than I expected, or than their circumstances would imply. So now, let's flip the script. As a coaster enthusiast, with hundreds of coasters in your pocket, you think you know what to expect based on the way a coaster looks, or the coaster's age, or the coaster's manufacturer. Usually, you're right, but sometimes the coaster will surprise you. This week, I want to talk about coasters that surprise you in a bad way. Everything you think you know about coasters leads you to believe that this will be a smooth ride, but you've got another thing coming. These are the 15 most surprisingly rough coasters I've ever ridden. Let's toss some honorable mentions in here. Dollywood takes great care of Tennessee Tornado, but their much newer coaster, Mystery Mine, had some funky headbanging elements and rough patches that I wouldn't expect from a Gerstlauer Eurofighter. American Eagle at Six Flags Great America isn't too bad in general, but for some reason, that helix is so rough that the train starts bouncing up and down. It's bizarre. Finally, Scream at Magic Mountain isn't even the roughest B&M that I've ridden. There are a few on the actual list, but I just like trashing Scream. What can I say? Number 15. Wildfire at Silver Dollar City. Yes, the rattle on Wildfire gets to my head worse than Scream. As much as I love this coaster for its setting right on the edge of the mountain, and its awesome first drop in the back row, there have been a couple times I've come off the ride looking for Advil. The rattle is especially bad at the bottom of those huge inversions. I'm sure it didn't open this way, so maybe Silver Dollar City can do some work on it, and make it a more pleasant experience. Number 14. Hydra the Revenge at Dorney Park. I'm really basing this off one ride I had in 2018, when I was in the front row. I rode this a couple times in 2008 without a problem, and even did a back row ride before the front row ride that's making me put this on this list. And that ride was perfectly fine. But that front row ride was so unbearably rough that I just wanted it to end. Normally, the front is the smoothest row on a coaster, but not in this case. If you've had this experience with Hydra, let me know in the comments below, but that was completely unexpected. Number 13. Skyrush at Hershey Park. There are a lot of pros and cons with Skyrush. Check out my thoughts on this polarizing coaster in my Apology to Skyrush video. And one of the things that's super noticeable is how much the train shakes on its long drawn-out turns. It does have an excuse for this, and that's because it has wing seating. Those seats that hang off the side of the track are more prone to vibrating, and you see this with the outside seats of X2 also. But in addition to the lap bar smashing your thighs, you get to deal with a bumpy ride in the wing seats, which makes Skyrush that much more fun. Number 12. Vekoma Hang and Bangs at various parks. If you don't know what these are suspended family coasters, like Flying Ace Aerial Chase at Kings Island, or Kiddy Hawk at Carowinds, or Silver Streak at Canada's Wonderland, or The Bat at Lagoon. They're everywhere, and they bang your head a lot. For as small as these are, you wouldn't think they'd be that rough on your head. After all, they're made for kids. But these just aren't designed very well, and these are rides that you have to ride defensively, so don't be fooled by its size and speed. It could play pinball with your head. I last rode The Bat at Lagoon in the front row, and it was not pleasant. Number 11. Desperado at Buffalo Bills Resort and Casino, circa 2001. It's an aero hyper, so a little roughness or bumpiness is expected at this point. But I'm looking back to my trip to Vegas in 2001, where I actually stayed at Buffalo Bills and got the all-day pass to ride Desperado, the log flume, the drop tower, and even got to watch a movie as part of the deal. Desperado was only 7 years old back then, and we rode it probably 10 times, and it beat us up pretty bad. Obviously, we put up with 10 rides, so it wasn't unbearable, but you shouldn't walk away from a relatively new coaster after 10 rides and feel like you just went 10 rounds in a boxing ring. The fact that Desperado was way rougher then than Magnum is now says a lot about maintenance, and maybe even something about that hot desert sun beating down on Desperado all year. Number 10. Windjammer Surf Racers at Knott's Berry Farm. When I was new to coasters, I didn't know what Togo was. I wasn't aware of their issue with transitions or anything like that. I just saw a shiny, brand new looping coaster in the corner of the park and thought it looked like fun. Even with the two cinder blocks next to your head, you think it should be alright, because after all, this is a new ride and it should be smooth. It wasn't. It wasn't one bit. This ride had a ton of issues, its roughness and transitions being the least of them, and it's no wonder the park scrapped it after a few years. Number 9. Goliath at Six Flags New England. Having ridden Deja Vu dozens of times over the 10 years it was at Magic Mountain, you'd think I had a good understanding of the ride. So when it made the move to Six Flags New England in 2012, and I made my way to the park for the first time in 2015, I was thinking, hey, it's Deja Vu, I love that thing. So we got on, and about 10 seconds into the ride, I wanted to get off. It was one of the most miserably rough and shaky rides I'd ever gotten on any coaster. Was it an issue with the relocation and reconstruction? Maybe. but most people point to the new 4 Across trains by Premier Rides, and those replaced the original Vekoma trains, which I thought were just fine. Now that Goliath is not on the park map anymore, maybe they'll put it somewhere where it can't hurt anyone. Number 8. Kingda Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure. I rode this in 2008, a few days before I rode Top Thrill Dragster, my first experience going over the 100-mile-per-hour mark. And when the train hits the point where it's going about 128 miles per hour, it starts shaking like crazy. Okay, maybe that's just what happens when something goes that fast. Then I rode Dragster, and that did not happen at all. And it made me wonder, what's going on with Kingda Ka? Maybe it adds to the experience when it feels like the train's gonna fall to pieces at the end of the launch track. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why this is so rough, when the other Intamin accelerators are not. Number 7. Son of Beast at Kings Island. Nowadays, Son of Beast is notorious for its problems, and its rough ride experience, thanks to RCCA cutting corners when building it. Back in 2002, I just knew that it was a 2-year-old wooden coaster, but it was one of the roughest coasters I'd ever ridden. I did give it multiple rides, just because it was one of the highlights of my trip, but it was tough to take. It sounds dumb now to be surprised that Son of Beast was so rough, but I didn't know any better back then. Number 6. Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm. When Knott's removed Boomerang and announced Hang Time, I think everyone was happy that we were getting a sleek, new, modern infinity coaster. And once it was built, it looked great. I got there on the pass holder preview day, gave it a ride, and noticed right away that there were some sections of the track where the train would rattle around. On some of my rides, I didn't notice, but on others, it's annoying. Why would a brand new coaster have this problem? Let's just say, it's not the last brand new Gerstlauer on this list. Number 5. SheiKra at Busch Gardens Tampa. I seem to be alone on this one. Everyone else calls this glossy smooth. That definitely was not my experience on my 3 rides in 2018. Between the Immelman and the mid-course breaks, the train would rattle, and it wasn't subtle. It was headache-inducing. This was my only trip to Busch Gardens, so I'm looking forward to getting back and giving it another try. It could have just been having a bad day. Number 4. Mindblower at Fun Spot Kissimmee. I may be alone on SheiKra, but not Mindblower. Apparently, this ride was assembled quickly and not all that well, and it was rough from its start in 2017. I rode it when it was just 1 year old, and its roughness really started grinding on me. I did ride this 8 times, trying to put up with it because the ride is flat out awesome, but you really wouldn't expect a 1-year-old ride to be that rough. Number 3. Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. When I first got to Silver Dollar City in 2018, I had ridden all the RMCs in the country except for Outlaw Run. They had all been butter smooth and amazing, including the 2 wooden coasters, Goliath, which I rode in 2017, and Lightning Rod, which I rode in its opening week. Outlaw Run was already 5 years old at the time, and I had no idea it was going to be that bumpy. Not really rough per se, but certain parts of the track, it felt like it was bouncing up and down. It turns out, this is what happens to RMC Topper Track Woodies, and when I came back to Dollywood the next year, the once smooth Lightning Rod had the same issue. Dollywood replaced most of the Topper Track with iBox Track before the 2021 season, and I would not be surprised if Silver Dollar City did the same thing at some point. Number 2. Harley Quinn Crazy Coaster at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. This Skyline flat ride coaster uses RMC's single rail track, but it rides nothing like an RMC. Going through those inversions, the train would rattle like crazy, every single time. It makes me wonder what about this very simple single rail ride would make it do that. I really can't explain it, and now that this ride is being removed from the park, I'll never figure it out. This is seriously one of the worst coasters I've ever ridden, and the roughness added a lot to it. Number 1. TMNT Shellraiser at Nickelodeon Universe. Gerstlauer does it again. Yet another coaster that I got to ride on its opening day, and yet another coaster that had some nasty sections. There were a couple moments on the ride where you feel a sudden jolt, especially right after that record-breaking steep drop. In the front, this was downright painful, but in the back, it was a little better. You know it's bad when people stop fighting for the front row and start fighting for the back row once they figure this out. I would understand this on an older coaster, but a brand new ride on its opening day? That just doesn't seem right. Hopefully the park can fix it, but given the fact that Hang Time had the same problem, maybe Gerstlauer is doing something wrong here. There's my list of surprisingly rough coasters. Let me know if you had a similar experience with these rides, or the complete opposite. And if there's any coasters not on this list that you think should be, sound off in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, and subscribe if you're new here and love coasters. And if you want to join my Discord server and talk with other fans of the channel, or check out my second channel, where I post copyright-free off-ride footage. Those links are down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.